The dust-laden wind carried whispers of doom as Eliza Zimmerman stepped off the stagecoach, her emerald eyes squinting against the harsh sunlight that bathed Redemption, Colorado. The year was 1875, and the town that would become her home had already branded her with a name that sent shivers down the spines of its inhabitants: Cursed. It wasn't the welcome she had expected when she inherited her late uncle's apothecary, but rumors traveled faster than truth in these parts, especially when 3 men had died mysteriously since her arrival was announced. "Best keep your distance from that one," the stagecoach driver muttered to a bystander as Eliza gathered her modest belongings. "They say death follows her like a shadow." Eliza pretended not to hear, but the words stung nevertheless. At 22, she had already endured more tragedy than most faced in a lifetime. First, the consumption that claimed her parents back in Boston, then the fire that destroyed her modest school-teaching position, and now this a legacy tainted before she could even claim it. The town seemed to physically part before her as she made her way down the dusty Main Street. Women pulled their children close, men tipped their hats but averted their eyes, and even the mongrel dogs seemed to sense something different about her. Eliza kept her chin high, though her heart sank with each passing step. "Miss Zimmerman," the voice was deep, confident, and entirely devoid of the fear she had come to expect. Eliza turned to find herself face to face with a tall man whose presence commanded attention without demanding it. His weather-beaten face spoke of years under the merciless western sun, but his eyes a striking shade of blue-held kindness that seemed almost foreign in this hostile environment. "Yes," she replied, clutching her carpetbag tighter. "Caleb Grayson," he introduced himself with a slight bow. "Sheriff asked me to show you to your uncle's place, said you might need a friendly face after your journey." Eliza studied him carefully. His attire suggested he was a working cowboy, worn leather chaps over denim trousers, a faded blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal sun-bronzed forearms, and a Stetson that had seen better days. Yet there was something refined about him, something that didn't quite fit the rough-hewn town of Redemption. "That's unexpectedly thoughtful," she managed, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. Caleb offered a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Not everyone believes in curses, Miss Zimmerman. And you, Mr. Grayson, what do you believe in?" He took her carpetbag without asking, the gesture so natural it didn't feel presumptuous. "I believe a person makes their own fortune in this life, good or bad." As they walked down the street, Eliza felt the stares intensify. Whispers followed them like tumbleweeds, gathering momentum with each step. "Pay them no mind," Caleb advised, his voice low. "This town's been through some hard times. Folks are looking for reasons, and strangers make easy targets." "3 men dead since my uncle's letter reached me," Eliza said matter-of-factly. "I can hardly blame them for their suspicions." Caleb stopped abruptly, turning to face her. "Those men died of their own foolishness. Barton in a card game he cheated at, Miller from a rattlesnake bite while drunk, and Thompson from falling off his horse during a storm. None of that has anything to do with you." His defense surprised her, warming something inside that had been cold for too long. "You seem awfully certain about a woman you've just met." A hint of a genuine smile tugged at his lips. "Let's just say I've got good instincts about people. It's kept me alive this long." The apothecary shop stood at the far end of town, a modest 2-story building with living quarters above the store. It was well maintained but clearly closed for business, with curtains drawn and a small sign in the window that read "Closed until further notice." "Your uncle was well respected," Caleb said as he unlocked the door with a key the sheriff had provided. "Best medicine man for 100 miles. People came from all over seeking his remedies." The interior smelled of dried herbs and minerals, a familiar scent that reminded Eliza of her father's study back in Boston. Her uncle had been her father's younger brother, though they had lost touch over the years. His unexpected bequest had been a lifeline when she needed it most. "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Grayson," she said formally, taking back her carpetbag. "I believe I can manage from here." He nodded but made no move to leave. Miss Zimmerman, I don't mean to frighten you, but you should know not everyone will welcome you with open arms. Your uncle's death was unexpected. Some folks think there was more to it than natural causes. Eliza's breath caught. Are you suggesting my uncle was murdered? I'm suggesting that in a town like Redemption, truth is sometimes less important than what people choose to believe. He placed his hat back on his head, adjusting it with practiced ease. I run cattle about 5 miles east of here. If you need anything at all, you send word. As he turned to leave, Eliza called after him, Mr. Grayson. Why are you helping me when everyone else seems determined to see me gone? He paused at the doorway, silhouetted against the bright afternoon sun. Because 6 months ago I was caught in a blizzard that should have killed me. I prayed for help, thinking no one would answer. The next morning, your uncle found me half frozen and nursed me back to health. He spoke of his niece back east with such pride. Caleb's eyes held her steadily. I figure helping you is the least I can do to honor his memory. With that, he was gone, leaving Eliza alone in a shop filled with remedies for every ailment except the one that plagued her most loneliness. The next morning arrived with a brilliant sunrise that belied the cold reception Eliza received when she ventured to open the apothecary. Women who entered quickly stated their needs, paid without meeting her eyes, and hurried out as if the building might collapse around them. Men were more direct in their disdain, some openly crossing to the other side of the street to avoid passing her doorway. By midday, Eliza had served only 4 customers, a stark contrast to what must have been her uncle's thriving business. She was arranging bottles of tinctures when the bell above the door jangled, announcing a visitor. A woman stood there, perhaps 40 years of age, with graying hair pulled back severely and a dress of practical brown wool. Her face was set in hard lines, but her eyes held something that wasn't quite hatred, perhaps caution mixed with curiosity. Miss Zimmerman, she said, her voice clipped. I'm Martha Owens. I run the boarding house. Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Owens, Eliza replied, wiping her hands on her apron. What can I help you with today? Information, mainly. Martha stepped further into the shop, her gaze darting around as if expecting to find evidence of dark rituals. People are talking. They say you studied witchcraft back east, that you can curse a man with just a look. Despite herself, Eliza laughed a short, surprised sound. I studied botany and basic medicine with my father, who was a doctor. I assure you, any curses I might utter would be entirely mundane in nature. Martha didn't smile. 3 men died after your uncle wrote to you. Now he's gone too. Seems like more than coincidence. My uncle died of heart failure, according to the letter I received. As for the others, Eliza stopped herself, remembering Caleb's words. I arrived yesterday, Mrs. Owens. Unless curses can travel through time and space before their caster, I fail to see how I could be responsible. The older woman studied her for a long moment. You've got spirit, I'll give you that. Your uncle was the same way, never backed down from what he believed was right. Her expression softened marginally. He was a good man, saved my William when pneumonia nearly took him 2 winters ago. Then you understand why I want to continue his work, Eliza said earnestly. These remedies help people. I have the knowledge to prepare them correctly. Martha seemed to be weighing her words carefully. The town needs a proper apothecary, that's true enough. But you'll need to prove yourself, girl. Show them you're your uncle's niece in more than just blood. The bell jangled again, and both women turned to see a young boy, no more than 10, standing breathlessly in the doorway. His clothes were dusty, his face flushed with exertion. Mrs. Owens. Pa sent me to fetch you quick. It's Tommy, he fell from the hayloft and ain't waking up. Martha paled. Lord have mercy, where's the doctor? Gone to the Bennett place. Their baby's coming early. Eliza was already moving, grabbing her uncle's medical bag from behind the counter. I can help, she said firmly. Head injuries need immediate attention. Martha hesitated only briefly before nodding. Come then. The Wilson farm is just outside town. They rushed through Redemption, the boy leading the way. People stared as Eliza ran past, medical bag in hand, but she paid them no mind. A child needed help. Whatever they thought of her didn't matter now. The Wilson farm was modest but well kept, with fields of wheat stretching toward the horizon. In the barn, a cluster of people surrounded a small, still form lying on a hastily arranged bed of hay. He climbed up there after I told him not to. A large man with a thick beard, presumably Mr. Wilson, was saying, his voice cracking with emotion. He just wanted to see the barn owl's nest. Eliza knelt beside the unconscious boy, checking his pupils and pulse with practiced movements. "How long has he been unresponsive?" "About 20 minutes, a woman answered, clearly the boy's mother. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands trembling. "Who are you?" "Eliza Zimmerman." "I'm Samuel Zimmerman's niece." Recognition dawned in the woman's eyes, followed quickly by fear. "The cursed woman," she whispered. "The apothecary," Eliza corrected firmly, continuing her examination. "Your son has a concussion, but his pulse is strong. The cut on his head looks worse than his head wounds always bleed profusely." She opened her uncle's bag, relieved to find everything she needed. "I need clean water and cloths." Mrs. Wilson hesitated, looking to her husband for guidance. "For heaven's sake, Judith, get the woman what she needs," Martha commanded. "Unless you'd rather wait for the doctor while your boy lies there bleeding," that spurred everyone into action. Eliza cleaned and dressed the wound, then prepared a mild tincture that would help with pain and inflammation when the boy woke. She instructed the parents on what to watch for and promised to return the next day to check on him. As they were leaving, Tommy stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Ma." He called weakly. The sound of his voice was like a dam breaking. Mrs. Wilson sobbed with relief, clutching her son's hand while her husband sent a prayer of thanks skyward. Outside, Martha gave Eliza an appraising look. "You knew what you were doing in there." "My father believed women should be educated in practical matters. Medicine was his passion, and he taught me everything he could." Eliza tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I may not have formal training, but I know how to help people in need." Martha nodded thoughtfully. "Well, you helped that boy when he needed it. That counts for something in my book." She glanced back toward town. "Word will spread about this, might change some minds. Or confirm their fears that I practice mysterious arts," Eliza said wryly. To her surprise, Martha chuckled. "In a place like Redemption, healing can seem like magic to those who don't understand it." She hesitated, then added, "Your uncle would be proud." The words warmed Eliza more than she expected. "Thank you, Mrs. Owens." "Martha," the older woman corrected. "Call me Martha." It was a small victory, but one Eliza treasured as she returned to her empty shop and even emptier home. The next few days brought gradual changes. Tommy Wilson recovered well, and his mother brought fresh eggs to the apothecary as thanks. A few more customers trickled in, some out of genuine need, others out of curiosity about the cursed woman who had saved a child. Eliza met each with the same calm professionalism, neither acknowledging the whispers nor attempting to dispel them directly. Let her actions speak for themselves. She was grinding herbs one afternoon when the door opened, admitting Caleb Grayson. He looked different today, cleaner, his shirt pressed, his hair neatly combed beneath his hat. He removed the hat as he entered, revealing that his dark blonde hair had been recently cut. "Miss Zimmerman," he greeted her with a nod. "I heard about the Wilson boy, good work." "Mr. Grayson," she returned, setting aside her mortar and pestle. "What brings you to town? Cattle business?" "That, and I wanted to see how you were settling in." His eyes scanned the shop, noting the rearranged shelves and fresh bundles of herbs hanging to dry. "Looks like you're making the place your own." "Trying to," she admitted. "It helps to keep busy." He nodded in understanding. "Heard Martha Owens has taken a shine to you." "That's no small thing. She's practically the conscience of this town." "She's been kind," Eliza agreed, then hesitated before adding, "though I still sense reservation, as if she's waiting for me to prove myself one way or the other. Aren't we all constantly being tested?" Caleb said with a slight smile, then more seriously, "I came to invite you to dinner at my ranch this Sunday." The invitation surprised her. "That's very kind, but you're worried about propriety," he finished for her. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Havorson, will be present. She's Norwegian, makes the best apple pie west of the Mississippi, and gossips less than anyone in 3 counties." His expression softened. "You could use a friend, Miss Zimmerman, and a day away from those stairs might do you good." Eliza considered his words. She had been alone for so long, first by circumstance, now by reputation. The thought of friendly conversation over a meal that she hadn't prepared herself was tempting beyond measure. "Sunday, then," she agreed. "Thank you." His smile transformed his face, removing years of hardship in an instant. "I'll send my wagon for you after church." After he left, Eliza found herself humming as she worked a simple tune her mother used to sing while baking bread. For the first time since arriving in Redemption, she felt something other than anxiety about the future. It was a fragile feeling, like the first green shoot after winter, but it was there nonetheless. Sunday arrived clear and crisp, the October air carrying the promise of colder days ahead. Eliza attended the small church, sitting alone in the back pew while Reverend Johnson delivered a sermon about judgment and forgiveness. She felt eyes on her throughout the service, but focused on the message, finding comfort in the familiar rituals even as she sensed she wasn't yet welcome in this congregation. As promised, Caleb's wagon arrived afterward, driven by a young ranch hand who introduced himself as Daniel. The ride to the Grayson Ranch took them through beautiful country rolling hills covered with golden grass, stands of aspens with leaves turning brilliant yellow, and in the distance, the majestic Rocky Mountains rising like guardians against the blue sky. The ranch itself was impressive without being ostentatious. A large main house built of solid timber stood amid several outbuildings, all well maintained. A corral held several magnificent horses, and beyond, cattle grazed on the abundant grassland. "Mr. Grayson waiting for you at the house, madam," Daniel said as he helped her down from the wagon. "Just head on up to the porch." Caleb met her at the door, dressed in clean trousers and a white shirt, his usual cowboy attire replaced by the clothing of a gentleman rancher. "Welcome to Sunrise Ranch," he said, gesturing for her to enter. "Named for the view from the east pasture." The interior was surprisingly refined, polished wooden floors covered with quality rugs, comfortable furniture arranged around a large stone fireplace, and bookshelves filled with volumes that would have pleased even her scholarly father. "This is lovely," Eliza said honestly. "You've built something beautiful here." "Not me alone," Caleb corrected. "My father started this place 20 years ago. I just added to his legacy after he passed." A short, round woman with silver-streaked blonde hair emerged from what must be the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "So this is the young lady," she said, her accent thick but her English clear. "I am Mrs. Havorson. Welcome to Sunrise Ranch, Miss Zimmerman." "Thank you for having me," Eliza replied warmly. "Dinner is ready," the housekeeper announced. "Come, eat before it gets cold." The dining room continued the theme of understated elegance, with a table that could seat 12 but was set intimately for 3. The meal was spectacular roast beef cooked to perfection, vegetables from the ranch's garden, fresh bread still warm from the oven, and the promised apple pie that lived up to its reputation. Conversation flowed easily. Caleb spoke of his cattle operation, the challenges and rewards of ranching in Colorado territory. Mrs. Havorson shared amusing stories of her journey from Norway and her early days in America. Eliza found herself talking about Boston, her parents, and her dreams of continuing her father's work in medicine. "Your father sounds like a forward-thinking man," Caleb observed, educating his daughter in medicine when most girls were learning needlepoint. "He believed knowledge shouldn't be restricted by gender," Eliza said. "My mother supported his views, though she made sure I could also manage a household. They complemented each other beautifully." "As it should be in a marriage," Mrs. Havorson declared, rising to clear the plates. "I will bring coffee in the parlor." When they were settled before the fire, cups of strong coffee in hand, Caleb's expression grew more serious. "I heard something in town yesterday that concerns me," he said. "Abner Collins was talking about organizing a meeting about the curse problem." Eliza's hands tightened around her cup. "I see. Collins has influence, owns the bank, and holds mortgages on half the businesses in town. If he's set against you..." Caleb didn't need to finish the thought. What does he have against me? I've done nothing to him. Caleb sighed. It's not what you've done, it's what he thinks you represent. Change. Your uncle and Collins had disagreements about the direction of the town. Samuel wanted progress, a proper school, maybe even a hospital someday. Collins prefers things as they are, with him holding all the power. And now I'm a convenient scapegoat, Eliza concluded, the mysterious Easterner who brings death and misfortune. I won't let them run you out, Caleb said firmly. Your uncle was my friend and he believed in this town's potential, so do I. There was something in his voice, a determination that went beyond mere friendship or obligation. It made Eliza wonder what else motivated this man who had entered her life so unexpectedly. Why do you care so much about what happens to me? She asked directly. Truly. Caleb set down his coffee cup, considering his words carefully. When your uncle found me in that blizzard, I was at the lowest point in my life. I'd lost my wife to childbed fever 2 years before, along with our infant son. I was angry at God, at the world. Part of me didn't care if I lived or died when that storm hit. Eliza's heart constricted at the pain evident in his voice. Samuel didn't just save my body, he helped heal my spirit. He talked about his family back east, especially his bright niece who had her father's mind for medicine and her mother's compassionate heart. Caleb's eyes held her steadily. He said if I ever met you, I'd understand what he meant about answered prayers sometimes coming in unexpected forms. The words hung in the air between them, charged with meaning that neither was quite ready to acknowledge. I'm sorry about your wife and son, Eliza said softly. That's a burden no one should have to bear. Rebecca would have liked you, he replied, a sad smile touching his lips. She had that same directness, that unwillingness to be cowed by circumstances. Mrs. Halvorson returned, breaking the intimate moment. More coffee, she offered, looking between them with knowing eyes. The rest of the afternoon passed pleasantly, with Caleb showing Eliza around the ranch. She admired his prize horses, including a magnificent black stallion named Thunder that even Caleb admitted was more spirit than sense sometimes, but worth the trouble. As the sun began its descent toward the mountains, Daniel brought the wagon around to take her back to town. Caleb helped her up, his hand lingering on hers a moment longer than necessary. Thank you for today, Eliza said. It's been restorative. Come again anytime, he replied, his eyes sincere. You're always welcome at Sunrise Ranch. The ride back to town gave Eliza time to reflect on the day and on Caleb Grayson. There was a depth to him that intrigued her, a combination of frontier strength and Eastern refinement that seemed perfectly balanced. And beneath it all, a core of kindness that remained despite the tragedies he had endured. She was so lost in thought that she almost missed the commotion as they entered Redemption. A crowd had gathered outside the town hall, voices raised in argument. Daniel slowed the wagon, looking uncertain. What's happening? Eliza asked, a sense of foreboding washing over her. Looks like a town meeting, Daniel replied, frowning, an unscheduled one. Eliza spotted Martha Owens at the edge of the crowd, her face tight with concern. When she saw Eliza in the wagon, she hurried over. They're talking about you in there, Martha said without preamble. Collins called a meeting while half the town was still at Sunday dinner, claims he's got evidence that links you directly to the deaths. Evidence? What evidence could possibly exist for something that isn't true? Eliza demanded, climbing down from the wagon. Doesn't matter if it's true, Martha replied grimly. It only matters if people believe it. Eliza straightened her shoulders. Then I should be in there to defend myself. Martha caught her arm. Are you sure that's wise? The mood in there is ugly. Hiding will only make me look guilty, Eliza said firmly. Thank you for the ride, Daniel. Please tell Mr. Grayson what's happening. The young man nodded, clearly troubled, before turning the wagon around and urging the horses to a faster pace back toward the ranch. Eliza took a deep breath and, with Martha at her side, pushed through the crowd into the town hall. The large room was packed with people, many standing along the walls. At the front, Abner Collins, a corpulent man with small, calculating eyes, was addressing the gathering. 3 men dead in as many weeks after her letter arrived, he was saying, his voice carrying to the rafters. And now Jacob Miller's prize bull found dead this morning, its eyes clouded white, just like the others. A murmur went through the crowd, and Eliza realized with horror that this was what they truly feared, not that she had directly caused deaths, but that she had brought some miasma of misfortune with her from the east. "That's nonsense," a voice called out, and Eliza was surprised to see Sheriff Tanner standing up. Miller's bull was old, and those men died of natural causes or their own foolishness. "And what about Samuel Zimmerman?" Collins countered. "Healthy as a horse one day, dead the next right after writing to his niece that he was leaving her everything." The insinuation was clear, and it struck Eliza like a physical blow. She pushed forward through the crowd, which parted before her like water around a stone. "How dare you?" she said, her voice trembling with fury. "My uncle was everything to me. I loved him, even though we were separated by distance. I could never harm him." Collins smirked, clearly pleased she had taken his bait. "Yet you benefit most from his death, don't you, Miss Zimmerman? A woman alone, suddenly inheriting a business and property." "A property worth far less than what I left behind in Boston," Eliza retorted. "If money were my motivation, I would have sold the apothecary and left the moment I arrived." "Unless you had other reasons for coming here," Collins suggested slyly. "Eastern cities are becoming unwelcoming to those who practice unusual arts." Before Eliza could respond, the doors burst open and Caleb strode in, his expression thunderous. He must have ridden hard from the ranch, judging by the dust on his clothes and the sweat on his brow. "What's the meaning of this, Collins?" he demanded, coming to stand beside Eliza. "A town meeting without proper notice, accusations without evidence. This isn't justice, it's a witch hunt." Collins' face reddened. "This doesn't concern you, Grayson. Go back to your cattle." "Anything that threatens the peace and well-being of this community concerns me," Caleb replied evenly. "And right now, you're the biggest threat I see," the crowd murmured, many nodding in agreement. Caleb was respected in redemption, his word carrying weight that even Collins couldn't easily dismiss. "I'm only looking out for the town's welfare," Collins insisted. "Strange things have happened since she arrived. She arrived yesterday," Martha interrupted loudly. "And yesterday, she saved Tommy Wilson's life when he fell from the hayloft. Is that the work of someone who brings death?" Mrs. Wilson stepped forward, emboldened by Martha's words. "My boy would be dead if not for Miss Zimmerman. She knew exactly what to do when even I was lost in panic. And she made a poultice for my Arthur's back that eased his pain more than anything the doctor prescribed," another woman added. One by one, voices rose in Eliza's defense, small kindnesses she had shown, remedies that had worked, moments of compassion that had been noticed even as rumors swirled. It wasn't everyone, but it was enough to shift the mood of the gathering. Collins, sensing he was losing control of the situation, tried another approach. "No one denies she has knowledge of medicines and cures. The question is where that knowledge comes from." "There are books of dark magic that, oh, for heaven's sake," Sheriff Tanner interrupted. "I've seen her uncle's library, medical journals, botany texts, nothing more sinister than Gray's Anatomy." Reverend Johnson, who had been silent until now, stood up. "I believe we should judge people by their actions, not by rumors or coincidences. Miss Zimmerman has done nothing but good since arriving in our community. As Christians, we are called to welcome the stranger, not persecute them based on fear." The minister's words carried significant weight, and Eliza felt tears threatening as she realized she had more allies than she'd known. Collins, however, wasn't finished. "What about the deaths? How do you explain those, Reverend?" Easily came a new voice from the back of the hall. Dr. Jenkins, the town physician, made his way forward. "Barton had a weak heart. I warned him about his drinking for years. Miller was bitten by a rattlesnake while drunk, and Thompson fell during a storm that spooked his horse. As for Samuel Zimmerman, he suffered from heart disease that finally claimed him. I signed all 4 death certificates myself." He turned to face Collins directly. "If you're suggesting I falsified official documents, Mr. Collins, I'd be careful about making such accusations public." Collins' face darkened with anger, but he recognized when he was beaten. "Fine, Believe what you want, but don't come crying to me when more misfortune befalls this town." He stormed out, followed by a few of his closest allies. The rest of the crowd began to disperse, many stopping to offer Eliza awkward words of support or apology. When the hall had mostly emptied, Eliza found herself standing with Caleb, Martha, Sheriff Tanner, and Dr. Jenkins. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice thick with emotion. "All of you." "Collins has wanted to control this town for years," the sheriff explained. "Your uncle stood in his way, and now you do too. I'm just trying to run an apothecary." Dr. Jenkins smiled kindly. "Your uncle and I worked together often. He had visions, saw redemption becoming a proper city someday, with education and health care for all. Collins prefers keeping people dependent on his bank and his goodwill." "The important thing," Caleb interjected, "is that Collins showed his hand too early. He tried to use fear to turn the town against you, and it backfired." Martha nodded in agreement. "People aren't as easily led as he thinks. They've seen you help their children, ease their pain. That counts for more than whispers and innuendo." Eliza felt overwhelmed by their support, but also by the realization that she had unwittingly stepped into a power struggle that had been brewing long before her arrival. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Caleb said with a slight smile, "you continue doing exactly what you've been doing. Running your business, helping people, becoming part of this community. And you won't be alone," Martha added firmly. "Collins may have his cronies, but you have friends too." As they walked outside, the setting sun painted the town in golden hues, softening its rough edges and highlighting its potential. For the first time since arriving, Eliza could imagine making a life here, not just surviving, but thriving. Caleb walked her back to the apothecary, their steps unhurried in the lengthening shadows. "Thank you for coming to my defense," Eliza said. "You rode all the way from your ranch. Daniel told me what was happening. I couldn't let you face that alone." His expression grew serious. "Collins won't give up easily. He's used to getting his way." "I'm not easily intimidated," Eliza assured him. "My father always said that truth and kindness eventually overcome fear and hatred. It just takes time." They reached the apothecary, pausing at the doorway. In the fading light, with the town quieting around them, there was an intimacy to the moment that made Eliza acutely aware of Caleb's presence, his height, the breadth of his shoulders, the way his eyes seemed to see beyond her careful composure to the vulnerability beneath. "Your father sounds like a wise man," Caleb said softly. "I wish I could have met him." "He would have liked you," Eliza replied, surprising herself with the certainty of it. "You remind me of him in some ways, your kindness, your sense of justice." Something flickered in Caleb's eyes, pleasure at the comparison, perhaps, or something deeper that neither was ready to name. "I should let you rest," he said, taking a step back. "It's been a trying day." "Yes," Eliza agreed, though part of her wished he would stay longer. "Thank you again, Caleb." It was the first time she had used his given name, and the sound of it seemed to hang in the air between them, marking a shift in their relationship that both acknowledged silently. "Good night, Eliza," he responded, his voice warm. "Sleep well." As she watched him walk away, Eliza felt something unfamiliar stirring within her, a cautious hope that perhaps redemption could become more than a refuge of last resort. Perhaps in this unlikely place, she might find what had eluded her in Boston, a true home, purpose, and people who saw her for who she truly was. The weeks that followed brought gradual changes to Eliza's life in redemption. The apothecary grew busier as more townspeople overcame their initial suspicions. Martha introduced her to the Ladies' Aid Society, where Eliza's medical knowledge proved valuable in their charity work. Dr. Jenkins began sending patients to her for herbal remedies when his conventional medicines fell short, and Caleb became a steady presence in her life. He found reasons to visit town several times a week, always stopping by the apothecary. Sometimes he brought small gifts, wild honey from a hive his ranch hands had discovered, a book of poetry he thought she might enjoy, fresh vegetables from Mrs. Havorson's garden. Other times he simply came to talk, sharing stories of his day or asking about hers. They developed a comfortable rhythm, their conversations deepening as they revealed more of themselves to each other. Eliza told him about losing her parents, about the loneliness of being a woman with ambitions in a society that valued female compliance above all else. Caleb spoke of his years building the ranch, of the joy and heartbreak of his brief marriage, of his gradual journey back from despair after losing his family. November brought the first heavy snow, transforming redemption into a landscape of pristine white broken only by the dark shapes of buildings, and the occasional hardy soul braving the cold. Business at the apothecary slowed with the weather, giving Eliza time to experiment with new remedies and organize her uncle's extensive notes. She was labeling bottles of cough syrup one afternoon when the door burst open, admitting a flurry of snowflakes and a breathless young woman. "Miss Zimmerman, please, you have to come," the girl pleaded, her face flushed with cold and exertion. "It's my ma, she's having the baby, but something's wrong. Pa sent me to get the doctor, but he's gone to the mining camp for the fever outbreak there." Eliza was already reaching for her medical bag. "What's your name, dear?" "Sarah Jensen. We have a farm 3 miles north. How long has your mother been in labor?" "Since last night. The pains are real close now, but Ma says the baby won't come." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "She's had 5 of us with no trouble, but this time she's scared. I heard her tell Pa she thinks she's dying." Eliza's mind raced through possibilities: breech birth, cord around the neck, placenta previa. Any could be fatal without proper intervention. "I'll come immediately. Do you have a horse?" Sarah shook her head. "I ran all the way." "Wait here." Eliza hurried to the livery stable next door, explaining the emergency to the owner, who saddled a sturdy mare for her without question. Within minutes, Eliza and Sarah were riding through the snow toward the Jensen farm, the girl clinging to Eliza's waist as they followed the road north out of town. The farmhouse was small but well built, smoke curling from the chimney against the gray sky. A worried-looking man met them at the door, relief washing over his face when he saw Eliza. "Thank God you've come," he said. "I'm Eric Jensen. My wife, Hannah, she's upstairs." Eliza followed him to a small bedroom where a woman lay in a sweat-soaked bed, her face contorted with pain. 4 children of varying ages huddled in the hallway, their eyes wide with fear. "Mrs. Jensen, I'm Eliza Zimmerman." She introduced herself calmly, setting down her bag. "I'm going to help you and your baby if you'll allow me." Hannah Jensen nodded weakly, another contraction seizing her before she could speak. "Mr. Jensen, I need hot water, clean linens, and as much light as you can provide," Eliza instructed. "Sarah, take your siblings downstairs and keep them occupied. This may take some time." As they left to follow her instructions, Eliza turned her full attention to Hannah. A quick examination confirmed her fears: the baby was turned sideways, unable to descend properly. "Mrs. Jensen, your baby is in the wrong position for birth," she explained gently. "I need to try to turn it, but it will be painful. Can you be brave for me?" "Will my baby live?" Hannah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I will do everything in my power to save you both," Eliza promised, meeting the woman's eyes directly. What followed was 3 hours of the most intense medical challenge Eliza had ever faced. She had assisted her father with difficult deliveries in Boston, but never had she been solely responsible for such a complicated birth. Drawing on everything she had learned, she carefully manipulated the baby into a better position between contractions, speaking constant encouragement to Hannah, who bore the pain with remarkable fortitude. Finally, with one last tremendous effort from the exhausted mother, a baby boy slid into the world, small but perfect. For one terrifying moment, he didn't breathe, then Eliza cleared his airways, and a lusty cry filled the room. "A son, Mrs. Jensen," Eliza said, placing the swaddled infant in his mother's arms, "strong and healthy." Hannah wept with joy, her husband beside her now, his own eyes damp with emotion. "Thank you," he said hoarsely to Eliza. "The doctor said after the last one that Hannah shouldn't have more children, that it might kill her, but we wanted one more so badly. She'll need rest and careful monitoring," Eliza advised, washing her hands in the basin. "I'll come back tomorrow to check on both of them." By the time Eliza had finished cleaning up and instructing the family on Hannah's care, darkness had fallen and the snow was coming down harder. "You can't ride back to town in this," Eric insisted. "Stay the night, it's the least we can offer." Exhausted from the emotional and physical demands of the delivery, Eliza gratefully accepted. Sarah showed her to a small but comfortable room, bringing her hot tea and freshly baked bread with butter. "Ma says when I'm older I might train as a midwife," the girl confided as Eliza ate. "After seeing you today, I think I'd like that." Eliza smiled warmly. "You'd make an excellent midwife, Sarah. You stayed calm in a crisis and followed instructions perfectly." The girl beamed at the praise. "People used to say you brought bad luck," she said with the directness of youth. "But that's not true. You saved Ma and the baby today." "Sometimes people fear what they don't understand," Eliza replied gently. "It's human nature." "Well, I'm not afraid of you," Sarah declared, "and I'll tell anyone who says bad things that they're wrong." After Sarah left, Eliza sat by the small window, watching the snow blanket the world in silence. She thought about the life she had saved today, 2 lives, really, and felt a deep sense of purpose that had eluded her since her father's death. This was what she was meant to do. Use her knowledge to help others, to ease suffering, to bring life rather than the death people had so readily associated with her. She was still at the window when she saw movement in the yard below a rider approaching through the swirling snow. Even bundled against the cold, there was no mistaking Caleb's tall figure as he dismounted and spoke with Eric at the door. Minutes later, there was a soft knock at her door. When she opened it, Caleb stood there, snowflakes melting in his hair, his expression a mixture of relief and something deeper that made her heart quicken. "Martha told me where you'd gone," he said quietly. "When you didn't return by nightfall, I was worried." "The baby was turned sideways," Eliza explained. "It took hours to deliver him safely." "But you did it," Caleb said, his eyes filled with admiration. "You saved them both." "I couldn't have left them to face it alone," she said simply. Caleb nodded, understanding in his gaze. "That's who you are, Eliza. That's why," he stopped, seeming to reconsider his words. "That's why this town needs you, whether they know it yet or not." There was something in his voice, a warmth that suggested he might have been about to say something different. The thought sent a flutter through Eliza's stomach. "Will you stay the night as well?" she asked. "The storm's getting worse." "Eric's offered me the barn. It's warm enough with the animals, and I've slept in worse places." He hesitated, then added, "I'll take you back to town tomorrow if you're willing to wait." "I'd like that," Eliza replied softly. They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings before Caleb finally stepped back. "Rest well, Eliza. You've earned it today." "Good night, Caleb," she answered, watching as he turned and walked back down the hallway, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the lamplight. That night, as Eliza drifted toward sleep, she realized something had fundamentally shifted in her heart. Redemption was no longer just a place of exile or obligation, it was becoming home. And Caleb Grayson, the man who had first welcomed her, was becoming something far more significant than just a friend. Morning brought clear skies and a world transformed by snow. After checking on Hannah and the baby, both doing remarkably well, Eliza prepared for the journey back to town. Eric Jensen insisted on paying her for her services, pressing gold coins into her hand despite her protests. "My wife and son are alive because of you," he said firmly. "There's no price too high for that." Caleb had readied the horses, his own stallion Thunder prancing impatiently beside the mare Eliza had borrowed. The ride back to Redemption was breathtaking, the landscape pristine under its blanket of white, the air crisp and clean. They rode side by side when the trail allowed, talking easily about everything and nothing. As they crested the final hill overlooking the town, Caleb reined in his horse, and Eliza followed suit. Below them, Redemption gleamed in the morning sunlight, smoke rising from chimneys, people beginning their day despite the snow. "It's beautiful from up here," Eliza observed. "You can see the potential," Caleb nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "Your uncle used to say the same thing." He saw what Redemption could become, not just what it was. "And what do you see, Caleb?" she asked, curious about his vision for the place he called home. He turned to look at her, snowflakes clinging to his hat brim, his blue eyes intense. "I see a place worth fighting for. A place where people can build something meaningful, raise families in safety, help each other through hard times." His voice softened. "A place where even the most wounded heart might find healing." The words hung between them, layered with meaning that went beyond the town's future. Eliza felt her breath catch, aware that they were no longer just talking about redemption. "I'd like to be part of that," she said quietly, "building something meaningful here." Caleb's expression warmed. "You already are, Eliza. What you did for Hannah Jensen yesterday, word will spread. People will remember who was there when they needed help most." They continued down the hill, entering the town proper, where several people called out greetings to them. News of the successful birth had indeed traveled fast, and Eliza found herself receiving nods of respect from townsfolk who had previously avoided her gaze. At the livery stable, Caleb helped her down from her horse, his hands lingering at her waist a moment longer than necessary. The contact sent warmth spreading through her despite the cold. "The Thanksgiving social is next week," he said, seemingly casual though his eyes were anything but. "Would you consider attending with me?" Eliza smiled, a genuine happiness bubbling up inside her. "I'd be honored, Caleb." "Good," he replied, his own smile breaking through his usual reserve. "Until then." As Eliza watched him ride away, she felt as if something long dormant within her was finally blooming, a capacity for joy she had feared might be lost forever after her parents' deaths. Here, in this town that had first feared her, she was finding not just purpose, but the possibility of happiness. The Thanksgiving social was a tradition in redemption, held annually in the town hall, which was transformed for the occasion with autumn decorations, tables laden with food, and space cleared for dancing. Everyone contributed dishes: Martha's famous cranberry sauce, Mrs. Havorson's apple and pumpkin pies, roast turkeys and hams provided by the local farms and ranches. Eliza spent the day preparing, both food for the social and herself. She baked her mother's cornbread recipe and whipped sweet potatoes with maple syrup and cinnamon. For herself, she splurged on a new dress ordered from Denver, deep forest green that complemented her eyes, with a fitted bodice and full skirt that swished pleasingly when she moved. Caleb arrived precisely at 6, dressed in his finest, a black suit that highlighted his broad shoulders, a crisp white shirt, and a string tie. He had trimmed his beard and combed his hair neatly, and when he saw Eliza, his expression of appreciation made her cheeks warm. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you," she replied, suddenly shy. "You clean up quite well yourself, Mr. Grayson." His smile crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Shall we?" The town hall was already filled with people when they arrived, lanterns casting a golden glow over the festivities. Eliza was surprised by the warm welcome she received. The Jensen family had apparently spread word of her skills, and the miracle birth during the snowstorm had replaced whispers of curses with murmurs of admiration. Reverend Johnson led the gathering in a prayer of thanksgiving before the feast began. Eliza found herself seated between Caleb and Martha, surrounded by friendly faces and conversation. Even Abner Collins kept his distance, though his sour expression whenever he glanced her way suggested his opinion remained unchanged. After dinner came the dancing, with a small band of local musicians providing lively tunes. Caleb led Eliza onto the floor for a waltz, his hand warm at her waist, his movements surprisingly graceful for a man who spent his days on horseback. "You dance well," she commented as he guided her through a turn. "My mother insisted on lessons," he admitted with a rueful smile. "Said no son of hers would stomp around a dance floor like a wounded bear." Eliza laughed, delighted by this glimpse into his childhood. "She sounds formidable." "She was," he agreed, his expression softening with memory. "Strong, determined, but kind to her core, like someone else I know." The compliment warmed her more than she expected. As they continued to dance, Eliza became increasingly aware of how well they fit together, his strength balanced by her grace, his seriousness complemented by her quiet humor. It felt right in a way that defied her usually practical nature. Later, when the music slowed and the older couples began to retire for the evening, Caleb suggested they step outside for fresh air. The night was cold but clear, stars blazing in the black velvet sky above Redemption. "I never saw stars like this in Boston," Eliza remarked, tipping her head back to take in the vast expanse. "Too many buildings, too much smoke." "That's one thing I love about this country," Caleb said, standing close beside her. "The sky feels endless, makes a man's troubles seem smaller somehow. Or reminds us how small we truly are in the grand scheme of things," Eliza added thoughtfully. Caleb turned to look at her, his expression serious in the soft light spilling from the town hall windows. "You know, when I first heard about Samuel's niece coming to claim the apothecary, I imagined some prim, frightened Eastern lady who'd sell everything and leave on the first stagecoach." Eliza raised an eyebrow. "Instead, you got a stubborn, opinionated woman who delivers breech babies during blizzards." His laugh was low and warm. "Instead, I got you, Eliza Zimmerman, and I thank God for that every day." The sincerity in his voice made her breath catch. "Caleb." "I know it hasn't been long," he continued, taking her gloved hand in his. "And I know you came here looking for a fresh start, not entanglements, but I need you to know that you've become important to me, more important than I ever expected." Eliza's heart raced, but she forced herself to be honest. "I care for you too, Caleb, deeply, but I also value my independence, the freedom to practice medicine, to make my own decisions. I've seen too many women lose themselves in marriage. Is that what you think I want? For you to lose yourself?" His voice was gentle, without judgment. "Eliza, what I admire most about you is your strength, your conviction. I would never ask you to be less than who you are." She studied his face in the moonlight, searching for any sign of insincerity and finding none. "What are you asking, then?" "Time," he answered simply. "Time to show you that what I feel isn't just admiration or gratitude. Time for you to be certain of your own heart." His thumb traced a circle on the back of her hand. "And perhaps, one day, time to build a life together that honors both our dreams." It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to her, all the more powerful for its honesty and lack of pressure. Eliza felt tears prick at her eyes, overcome by emotions she had kept carefully contained for so long. "I think I would like that very much," she whispered. His smile transformed his face, years of solitude falling away in an instant. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Caleb leaned down and pressed his lips to hers, a kiss as gentle as it was profound, sealing a promise between them that needed no further words. When they returned to the social, hand in hand, Eliza noticed several knowing glances and approving smiles. Martha caught her eye from across the room and gave a small nod that somehow conveyed both blessing and caution. "Be happy, but be wise." The remainder of the evening passed in a pleasant blur, and when Caleb walked Eliza home, their goodbye at her door held new significance, the beginning of something precious and fragile, a tender shoot of hope pushing through the hard ground of past sorrows. Winter settled fully over Redemption in the weeks following Thanksgiving, bringing shorter days and long, cold nights. The apothecary remained busy with winter ailments, coughs, chilblains, fevers, and injuries from ice and snow. Eliza worked tirelessly, building a reputation for effective remedies and compassionate care that gradually erased the last whispers of curses and misfortune. Her relationship with Caleb deepened with each passing day. He came to town more frequently despite the difficult travel conditions, sometimes staying at the hotel overnight when snow made the journey back to Sunrise Ranch impractical. They shared meals, conversations, and increasingly, dreams for the future. Christmas approached with festive preparations throughout town. Eliza decorated the apothecary with pine boughs and red ribbons, filling the shop with the scent of cinnamon and cloves. She found herself looking forward to the holiday for the first time since her parents' deaths, planning gifts for the friends she had made and especially for Caleb. A week before Christmas, Martha organized a quilting bee at her boarding house, inviting the women of Redemption to work together on blankets for the orphanage in Denver. Eliza attended, bringing her modest sewing skills and eagerness to participate in the community tradition. She was working alongside Sarah Jensen, who had become something of an apprentice, when Hannah Jensen approached, her baby boy bundled warmly in her arms. "Miss Zimmerman, would you hold little Samuel for a moment?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. "I need to help with the refreshments." Eliza looked up in surprise. "You named him Samuel," Hannah smiled. "After your uncle, who helped our family many times, and for you, who saved his life. It seemed fitting." Deeply touched, Eliza accepted the infant, cradling him gently as he slept. His tiny features were peaceful, his breath coming in soft puffs against her neck. Something shifted inside her as she held him, a longing she had never fully acknowledged until this moment. "You look natural with a baby," Martha observed, sitting down beside her. "Ever thought about having your own?" Eliza blushed. "I always assumed I would someday if I married, but my work seemed more important than finding a husband." "Why not both?" Martha asked practically. "The right man wouldn't make you choose." "Caleb, you mean?" Eliza said quietly, knowing that their courtship was no secret in a town the size of Redemption. Martha nodded. "He's a good man," Eliza, "lost his way for a while after Rebecca died, but he's found himself again, found purpose." She paused meaningfully. "Found you." "I care for him deeply," Eliza admitted, "but it's all happening so quickly." "Life out here doesn't always give us the luxury of time," Martha replied. "When happiness presents itself, wise folks don't question the timing." Before Eliza could respond, the door to the boarding house burst open, admitting a blast of cold air and Dr. Jenkins, his face grave. "Eliza," he called, scanning the room and spotting her. "I need your help. There's been an accident at the sawmill, multiple injuries, burns. I can't tend them all myself." Handing baby Samuel back to Hannah, Eliza grabbed her shawl and followed the doctor into the snowy street. They hurried to the sawmill at the edge of town where a crowd had gathered. Smoke still rose from the building, though the fire had been extinguished. Inside, the scene was chaotic. 5 men lay injured on hastily arranged pallets, their colleagues hovering anxiously nearby. The mill owner, Patrick Murray, was explaining what happened to Sheriff Tanner. "The new boiler exploded," he said, his face ashen. "No warning, just a terrible noise and then steam everywhere. Burns, flying debris. It's a miracle no one was killed outright." Dr. Jenkins immediately began assessing the most severely injured man, who had extensive burns on his chest and arms. "Eliza, take the next 2, he instructed. "Start with the burns and lacerations." For the next several hours, Eliza worked alongside the doctor, cleaning wounds, applying salves for burns, stitching cuts, and setting a broken arm. The work was grueling but focused her mind completely, allowing no room for anything but the immediate needs of her patients. She was binding a nasty cut on a young worker's leg when Caleb arrived, his expression tense until he spotted her. Relief washed over his face, followed quickly by concern as he took in her blood-stained apron and exhausted appearance. "I just heard," he said, coming to her side. "What can I do to help?" "Water," she replied gratefully. "Fresh bandages, and someone needs to inform the families." "I'll take care of it," he promised, squeezing her shoulder briefly before turning to organize the assistants. With Caleb coordinating volunteers, the situation gradually stabilized. 2 of the most severely injured men were transported to the doctor's office for overnight observation. The others were sent home with family members and instructions for care. By the time Eliza and Dr. Jenkins finished, it was well past midnight. Exhaustion hit her suddenly as the last patient left, her legs nearly buckling as the adrenaline drained away. "Steady," Caleb murmured, his arm around her waist. "Let me take you home." Too tired to protest, Eliza leaned against him as they walked slowly through the silent, snow-covered town. The stars glittered coldly overhead, the moon casting blue shadows across the white landscape. "You were amazing today," Caleb said quietly. "Jenkins said he couldn't have managed without you." "I only did what needed doing," Eliza replied, her voice hoarse with fatigue. "That's what makes you extraordinary," he insisted. "You see what needs doing and you do it, regardless of personal cost." They reached the apothecary, and Caleb helped her up the steps to her living quarters above the shop. Inside, he built up the fire while Eliza changed out of her soiled clothes, returning in a clean dress with her hair loosened from its practical bun. "You should eat something," Caleb suggested, finding bread and cheese in her small kitchen area. "You've been working for hours." As she ate, Eliza realized how comfortable this felt Caleb in her home, caring for her needs without making her feel helpless or incapable. There was an ease between them, a natural rhythm that required no effort. "I should go," he said eventually, though his reluctance was evident. "It's late and you need rest." "Stay," Eliza said impulsively, then blushed at his surprised expression. "I mean, it's snowing again and it's dangerous to ride back to the ranch in the dark. You can take the chair by the fire." Caleb studied her face for a long moment. "Are you certain? I don't want to compromise your reputation." "My reputation?" Eliza laughed softly. "I was the cursed woman not 2 months ago. I think I can weather a bit more gossip." His answering smile was warm. "If you're sure, then thank you. I admit the thought of that ride wasn't appealing." They talked a while longer, the fire crackling in the grate, until Eliza's eyelids grew heavy. Caleb insisted she take the bed while he made himself comfortable in the overstuffed chair, using a spare blanket she provided. Just before sleep claimed her, Eliza had a vision of many such evenings stretching into the future: quiet companionship, mutual respect, the comfort of knowing someone cared deeply for her well-being. It was a future she had never dared imagine for herself, yet now it seemed not only possible but right. In the morning, she woke to the smell of coffee and found Caleb had already stoked the fire and prepared a simple breakfast. They ate together in comfortable silence, watching the sun rise over the snow-covered town. "I'll check on the mill workers today," Eliza said, her mind turning to her patients. "The burns will need fresh dressings." Caleb nodded, unsurprised by her dedication. "I'll come back this evening if that's all right. There's something I'd like to discuss with you." His tone was serious enough to make Eliza pause. "Is something wrong?" "No," he assured her quickly. "Nothing's wrong, just something important." He stood, donning his coat and hat. "Until this evening, then." After he left, Eliza found herself distracted throughout the day, wondering what Caleb wanted to discuss. The possibility that he might propose both thrilled and terrified her. Was she ready for such a commitment? Did she truly know her own heart? By the time evening arrived, bringing Caleb back to her door with a small wrapped package in hand, Eliza had come to a decision. Whatever he asked, she would answer honestly, not just about her feelings for him, but about her hopes and fears for the future. "Merry Christmas," he said, presenting the package as she welcomed him inside. "I know it's a few days early, but I wanted you to have this now." Eliza unwrapped it carefully to reveal a small leather-bound book, a medical journal, specifically focused on herbal remedies and traditional healing practices. It was clearly valuable and difficult to obtain in the West. "Caleb, this is wonderful," she breathed, carefully turning the pages. "How did you find it?" "I have a friend in Denver who owns a bookshop. Wrote to him months ago, actually, when your uncle was still alive. It just arrived yesterday." His expression grew softer. "Samuel was going to give it to you when you visited. I thought you should have it now." The thoughtfulness of the gift moved her deeply. "Thank you, I'll treasure it." They settled by the fire, and Eliza sensed Caleb gathering his thoughts for whatever he wanted to discuss. Finally, he turned to face her directly. "Eliza, I've been thinking about the future, mine and I hope ours." His voice was steady, his blue eyes serious. "I love you. I think I've loved you since that first day when you stood your ground despite everyone's fear and suspicion." Her heart swelled at the declaration, though she had come to suspect his feelings ran as deep as her own. "I love you too, Caleb," she said simply, the words feeling both momentous and natural. His smile was brief but radiant. "Then I want to propose something to you, not just marriage, though that's part of it, but a partnership in the truest sense." Eliza's eyebrows rose in surprise. "I'm listening." "I've purchased the old Peterson property at the edge of town, 15 acres with a good house and outbuildings. Close enough that you could continue running the apothecary, but with space to expand." His eyes lit with enthusiasm. I've been thinking about what your uncle wanted for redemption: proper medical care, education. What if we built something together? A place where you could practice medicine more fully, train others like Sarah Jensen who show aptitude? Eliza stared at him, stunned by the vision he was offering. You would do that, support my work that way? I would be proud to, Caleb said firmly. This town, this territory needs healing hands, your hands. He took her fingers in his own, his touch gentle. I'm not asking you to give up your independence or your calling. I'm asking if you'll share your life with me, build something meaningful together. Tears filled Eliza's eyes, not of sadness but overwhelming joy. It was as if Caleb had looked into her heart and seen her deepest wishes, dreams she had barely acknowledged even to herself. Yes, she whispered, then more strongly, yes, Caleb, to all of it. He pulled her into his arms then, his kiss conveying all the emotion words couldn't express: tenderness, passion, gratitude, and above all, love that had grown from the most unlikely beginnings. When they finally drew apart, Caleb reached into his pocket and pulled out a small ring, a simple gold band set with a single emerald that matched her eyes perfectly. It was my mother's, he explained as he slipped it onto her finger. She made me promise I would only give it to a woman with a spirit to match hers. I wish I could have known her, Eliza said softly, admiring the ring that now symbolized not just their love but a heritage she would proudly become part of. She would have loved you, Caleb assured her. Almost as much as I do. They were married on Christmas Eve in the small church, decorated with evergreen boughs and candles that cast a warm glow over the gathering. The entire town attended, even Abner Collins, whose opposition had gradually softened in the face of Eliza's undeniable contributions to redemption. Martha stood as Eliza's witness, her normally stern face softened with emotion as she watched the couple exchange vows. Dr. Jenkins stood for Caleb, the two men having formed a strong friendship through their shared respect for Eliza. Snow fell gently outside as Reverend Johnson pronounced them husband and wife, the flakes visible through the windows like falling stars in the early evening darkness. When Caleb kissed his bride, a spontaneous cheer rose from the congregation, celebrating not just a union of two people but the healing of old wounds and the promise of new beginnings for all of redemption. The celebration continued at the town hall, with music, dancing, and enough food to feed the community twice over. Eliza and Caleb moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and well wishes from people who had once feared the very mention of her name. See what can happen in just a few months, Martha said, embracing Eliza warmly. From cursed to cherished. It's hard to believe, Eliza admitted, watching as Caleb lifted little Samuel Jensen into his arms, the baby grabbing at his tie with tiny fingers. Sometimes I think I might wake up back in Boston, all of this just a dream. No dream, Martha assured her, just life as it should be with its proper measure of hardship and joy. Later, as Caleb led her in a waltz, he pulled her closer than was strictly proper and whispered in her ear, "Happy, Mrs. Grayson." "Completely," she replied, savoring the new name that represented not a loss of identity but an expansion of it. "And you." His eyes, warm in the candlelight, held hers with a depth of emotion that needed no words. "You are my answered prayer, Eliza, the one I never expected, never deserved, but will spend my life being thankful for." As midnight approached, they slipped away from the celebration, driving through the gently falling snow to the Peterson property, now their home. Caleb had spent weeks preparing it, with help from his ranch hands and friends in town. The house was warm and welcoming, a fire blazing in the hearth, evergreen and holly decorating the mantels and tables. "Welcome home," he said simply as he carried her across the threshold. That night, in the privacy of their bedroom, they discovered each other fully for the first time, a consummation of their love that was both tender and passionate, guided by Caleb's experience and Eliza's trust in the man who had seen her true worth from the beginning. Afterward, lying in his arms as the fire burned low, Eliza marveled at the journey that had brought her to this moment. From feared outsider to beloved wife, from isolated survivor to integral part of a community. The town had called her cursed, but Caleb had recognized her as a blessing from the start. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his fingers tracing gentle patterns on her bare shoulder. "That life rarely takes us where we expect," she answered truthfully. "When I came to redemption, I was just looking for somewhere to belong. I never imagined finding all of this purpose, acceptance, love." Caleb kissed her forehead softly. "Sometimes the best journeys are the ones we never planned." As they drifted towards sleep, snow continuing to fall outside their window, Eliza felt a profound sense of rightness, as if all the sorrows and struggles of her past had been leading her inexorably to this place. This man, this life. The town had called her cursed, but she knew now that she was blessed beyond measure. Spring came to redemption in a riot of wildflowers and new growth that mirrored the flourishing of Eliza and Caleb's life together. The Peterson property, now widely known as Grayson Farm, became a center of activity as they implemented their vision for expanded medical care in the region. Eliza continued running the apothecary in town, but also established a small clinic at the farm where she could treat patients requiring longer observation or specialized care. Caleb built additional rooms onto the house specifically for this purpose and worked with Dr. Jenkins to acquire proper medical equipment from Denver. Sarah Jensen became Eliza's formal apprentice, showing remarkable aptitude for medicine and a gentle touch with patients. Other young women from surrounding communities began to express interest as well. And soon Eliza found herself not just practicing medicine, but teaching it, fulfilling a dream she had scarcely dared to acknowledge. Caleb divided his time between Sunrise Ranch, which continued to thrive under his management, and their shared projects at Grayson Farm. He proved to be not just supportive of Eliza's work, but an active partner in it, using his business acumen to secure funding and supplies, and his standing in the community to overcome lingering resistance to a woman-led medical initiative. Their personal happiness deepened with each passing day. The initial passion of their relationship matured into something even more powerful, a partnership of equals built on profound respect, unwavering trust, and a love that continued to surprise them with its capacity for growth. By summer, rumors of another kind began to circulate in redemption, whispers that Mrs. Grayson's slightly fuller figure and occasional morning absences from the apothecary might indicate a blessed event on the horizon. Eliza and Caleb neither confirmed nor denied these speculations, preferring to keep their joyful secret between themselves until the appropriate time. On a warm evening in July, as they sat on the porch of their home watching the sunset paint the distant mountains in shades of gold and purple, Eliza finally spoke the words they had been privately celebrating for weeks. "Doctor." "Jenkins confirmed it today," she said, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. "We're having a baby, likely in early February." Caleb's face transformed with wonder and joy as he placed his hand over hers. "A child," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Our child." "Are you happy?" she asked, though his expression left little doubt. "Happy doesn't begin to describe it," he replied, drawing her into his arms. "Eliza, you've given me back everything I thought was lost forever: purpose, joy, family. There aren't words for what I feel." She leaned against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "It's strange to think that a year ago I was alone in Boston with no idea what the future held. Now here we are, creating a new life together in every sense." "From cursed to blessed," Caleb murmured, echoing Martha's earlier sentiment. "Though I never believed in that curse for a moment." "No," Eliza agreed, smiling up at him. "You called me your answered prayer instead and held me tight through all the storms." As twilight deepened around them, casting long shadows across the land they now shared, Eliza felt a profound sense of completion. The journey that had begun in loss and fear had led her to this place of abundance and love, a destination she could never have imagined, but which now felt like the only place she was ever meant to be. The town that had once called her cursed now looked to her for healing. The man who had recognized her true worth from the beginning now held her as his greatest treasure. And within her grew the promise of a future filled with new possibilities, new challenges, and above all, the enduring love that had transformed them both. In the gathering darkness, Caleb drew her closer still, his arms strong and protective around her. "I love you, Eliza Grayson," he whispered against her hair, "more with each passing day." "And I love you," she replied, the words simple but carrying the weight of everything they had overcome together. Always. As stars appeared one by one in the vast Colorado sky, they remained on the porch, planning and dreaming, their voices soft in the summer night. The curse that had never been real had given way to a blessing that exceeded all expectations, a love story written not in fear and superstition, but in courage, compassion, and the unwavering belief that sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as our greatest challenges. And in Redemption, Colorado, where whispers had once carried tales of doom, the wind now seemed to sing a different song, one of hope restored, of second chances embraced, and of a love that had transformed not just two lives but an entire community. The end.